Hello, dear listener. Welcome to the Self-Consciousness Podcast. I am your sick host, Jennifer Way, intuitive consultant, and I'm so happy you are here today. As you can hear from my voice, I have COVID. Woohoo! I will say that I hope it's not too distressing to hear my voice like this. Because, you know, when you talk to people and you've got a sick voice, it's like not really a pleasant thing to hear. But trust me, I'm on the mend. I'm getting better. I'm feeling better. I'm definitely at the tail end. Although I just took a test and I'm still testing positive. But I am just holed up in my room and isolating, quarantining, whatever you want to call it. It's been a couple of weeks since I've put out an episode. I haven't really had much to say. And of course, leave it to me to, on the week that I am, sort of ill, recovering, to really just feel the urge to come through with some messages. This is going to be a little bit of a sort of like higher self coming in hot episode. I really wanted to get some things down on paper, and I really wanted to get some messages over to you guys because I'm experiencing a lot of changes, as you can hear. and I wanted to share them with you because I think it's really important right now, especially. And the subject of this episode is all about self-definition, although the title will probably change by the time I put this out. The Self-Consciousness Podcast has gone through a lot of iterations. It's gone through a lot of sort of different forms, different lives. Way back when I started this 2 years ago, I imagined it getting very big very soon. Yeah, and I also, and I had my co-host, Jermaine, and I feel like since I've started this podcast, I've wanted it to do many different things. At first, I really just wanted it to be a form of expression, and then I realized maybe I should actually make it useful for people, so I tried a little bit of that. And now I'm just kind of back to what I feel like I want it to be, which is going to be whatever the fuck I want. I am still working as an intuitive consultant, but I'm going to be honest with you. It is nearly impossible to run a business and do what is required, and that I'm air quoting, in terms of marketing and promotion and things like that, when you are a primary parent. As a primary parent, there's not a lot of energy and time left over to dedicate to these things, and I don't care if people are doing it. I'm not. So I've raised my prices, as you may or may not have known, and this is simply because this is what my services cost. And it was about time to make that something in the realm of what works for me, whereas in the past, that is not what I had been doing. So while I do intend on keeping this podcast alive, who's to say what will happen in the future? I think I have left behind all of the intentions that I've had prior to, honestly, today or this week about this podcast. And right now I'm just using it as a way to communicate to you directly. So I do appreciate if you've been here before, and I do appreciate if you followed me from the beginning. And I'm really excited to share these thoughts with you. I really love sort of downloading and passing it along. There was a year, I guess in 2020 is when I was doing YouTube videos, and a lot of that was very much downloaded energy and very much with high intentions. And, this episode is going to have a sort of similar sort of tinge to it. So I am grateful for your listenership. I am grateful that you are here. We need you. We need your fucking light in this world. And that's going to be a little bit about what I want to talk about today. So come in and join me, and you won't get sick. So that's pretty cool. So while I've been sick, and I'll get into the actual part of the episode, and excuse me, because I'm going to be drinking lemon water. So hold on. I made the mistake of watching Love is Blind because, when you've got COVID, your schedule is cleared. So there was a lot of binging. And I watched Bridgerton finally, seasons 1 and 2. And I liked it. I was a little disappointed by all the gratuitous sex scenes, I'll be honest. But I watched Love is Blind, and it just occurred to me, I'm like, this show is just it used to be sort of like a guilty pleasure, and now it's just beyond. This is just people copying what they think they're supposed to be saying, what they think they're supposed to be believing, what they think they're supposed to be doing. And it was just watching copies of copies of copies. And the generation has deteriorated on romantic love in our society. I was kind of appalled, to be honest, at how incredibly inauthentic these people were to themselves. So love is not only blind, but it's fucking dumb, man. So that's my hot take. So finding self-definition in the face of influence, right? Sovereignty and finding your own way resides in your power to choose. But you need to decide whether you truly want to be independent. Can you rely on your own power in the face of influence, whether it's subtle or overt? Reminding yourself of why you're alive in these moments is critical. Your heart and your head are not separate. None of your components are truly separate. Excuse me. It's our thoughts that separate them. And more often than not, thoughts are fed to us like food. And in true reflection of the American diet, these thoughts are overly processed before they even make their way to us. Now, what is one to do with a hungry mind? We must give it time to rest, to recover, to digest, to process. But we don't give ourselves this time. We certainly don't give ourselves enough. Constant bombardment of attention pulling is our downfall. It is what wires us up to function through a different power source. But your power source is all you can access. It's all you may access. And it's all you need to access. In these last 2 years, COVID gave us a painful gift of truly taking the time to know oneself, to be with oneself, not to run away, not to escape. But we keep finding ways to escape reality because it's altogether too painful. But the pain is not coming from reality. The pain is coming from prolonged suffering. Suffering in relation to self-identity, to self-worth, and to self-actualization. The only ways forward are to pinpoint where your own truth lies. Isn't that funny? Where your own truth lies? Does your truth lie? But knowing yourself after these couple of years, how has it changed what you previously thought or expected? what you expected of yourself or what you expected of others. The absolute annihilation of the self, of the I am, or whatever you want to refer to it, however you want to refer to it, comes from aspiration, influence without perceived consequence, a life of ease where the grass is always greener for someone else. But when do we come to terms with the fact that regardless of what we are being shown, what we're being fed rarely contains truth? Yet we still allow ourselves to be influenced by the mythology of others. Ancestral healing, for those of you who are exploring this, can absolutely be a factor in your reality, but allowing your own perspective and personal history to be an understood part of the equation is completely necessary to truly process why and how you are affected by these things. Remember, pain from ancestors was endured during less conscious periods. So the trauma that is coming out has been parsed out into the complexities of consciousness in generations after. Do you understand what I'm saying? The past, consciousness was completely different. They couldn't process trauma. We can only process it now because our consciousness is more complex. And I want you to think of unhealed trauma. You can think of this as being in a sustained lower vibrational state. So where do we go from here? The truth is, it's not a question of we, not primarily. And we kind of have to put that to the side for now, because we're constantly bombarded by the we. It's a fundamental question of I. Where do I go from here? Finding your way forward is completely dependent on how much time you are willing to give yourself. If you're constantly worried about what will and won't get done or achieved, your mindset is already creating an experience of endless searching for the answer. And you're never going to find it because you're like existing in that state. We all know and experience this. And ultimately, it's your framing of this quest that makes it never ending. And coming back to this consciousness thing, we have to come to terms with the fact that in the past, human consciousness was different. Think about how different your consciousness is now compared to only 3 years ago, maybe even 6 months ago. Think about conversations you are having now that simply never would have happened before. Especially with certain people in your lives that it would never have happened before. Now imagine 20 years ago, 50 years ago, 2,000 years ago. You know where I'm going with this. The fact that so many in our time are still relying on stories from a past that we literally cannot even fathom relating to in our time. A time of, back then, a time of stiff, limited, and much simpler levels of consciousness and self-awareness. Not even really any self-awareness. Keeping ourselves hooked to these stories from the past, it's keeping our minds and hence our souls in a static state. We are shortchanging ourselves and we are relying on rules from another time, from a completely different time in terms of survival and life experience. And the fact that we're holding others to these very outdated belief systems further erodes the miraculous nature of our own divine humanity and potential as emotional and intelligent life forms of this planet. We are Earth, and we continue to separate ourselves from ourselves. And if I had the wherewithal right now, I would include the clip from Austin Powers where he says, "Allow myself to introduce myself," just because it cracks me up. And why not? Okay, so I just listened to myself. So forceful, so serious. But I really want to urge all of you. I want to urge all of you to find your own retreat into monkhood, or like #monk life. Consider it as a departure from what you might associate with religion, or even how man has gotten it wrong, and really more as a way towards your own spiritual tending. So temporarily renouncing worldly pursuits to devote yourself to self-reconnection, deeper self-knowing. And you know, there's no two ways about it. The natural world must be a part of this, for it is only in nature that we can feel and sense our own return to our biological and energetic truth. The consumerist and technological hold on our attention has only gotten stronger. And I remember warning about this back in when COVID was happening and there was a big shutdown. And, you know, I could see on my LinkedIn people who were like working in marketing and PR, they were like, now's our chance. And I told people, I'm like, companies are just chomping at the bit to really jump on this. And I just felt like it was so disgusting. And it's gotten worse. It's only gotten worse. And listen, while I applaud the great strides that social media has made in being like somewhat of an equalizer, it is nowhere near being used in a capacity of benefit for all. This is simply because we have not reached this point. So anything we create at this still very encumbered level of mass consciousness will just remain stuck in the old ways. Now, you can talk yourself out of this, but this is the truth. This is the truth. It's not benefiting humanity right now. It could. It has the capacity to. But not when 50% of the world's population are still asleep. I'm sorry, but social media is not progress. Like this kind of technology, it's not progress. For you can all sense the amount of regression going on. You know it. You can feel it when you observe. You can feel it when you swipe. You can feel it when you zone yourself out. Stop zoning out. You are no good to anything or anyone in this state. Your energy is far too precious, and your time in this fucking incarnation is extremely limited. I really believe that in the years to come, we're going to look back at these behaviors that we all widely accepted as normal, and we're going to look back at it in disbelief. The fact that we allowed ourselves, our energy, our focus, once we understand what this is, that we allowed our attention to be commandeered and influenced like this. I really hope I'm preaching to the choir, but draw back your energy from the external world so that you may rest and repair your mind, your body, and your soul, and to rediscover your truth, your flow, your own joy. Here's another thing. Please consider asking yourself at many times during your days or your weeks, what is my motivation here? Is this motivation authentic to my actual nature? Am I becoming who I know I truly am in deeper ways? Ask yourself, do you even want to expand who you are? And there's no right answer. There's no right answer. But the important thing that you have to consider is your own context, your actual personal history. When have you punished yourself for things that simply were not your responsibility? Internally, where can you be more reasonable about yourself? How can you be more fair to the parts of you that still need time to heal? When you have stronger self-definition, and listen, it's always going to be wavy, you know? It's really difficult to be completely set and understanding yourself. I know very few people who are like this, but they're out there. Because you also want to have this strong self-definition, but you also want to be able to communicate that. You want to be able to work with other people, but you've got to create a stronger self-definition. That's just, there's no way to move forward in this world without that. And this message really goes especially to women. Especially to women, especially to younger women. Actually, no, all of us. When you have stronger self-definition, you do not question whether people are okay with the boundaries you set with them. Because that is simply their job to reconcile, not yours. Have you taken on too much of other people's feelings and emotions and expectations? I'm going to repeat what I said before. Constant bombardment of attention pulling is our downfall. It is what wires us up to function through a different power source. Your power source is all you can access, all you may access, and it is all you need to access. It's not your business what others think about you. It's your business what they do or communicate to you directly. And while it is responsible to take ownership of your misdeeds or wrongdoing, do not apologize for other people anymore, because you take on their energy, and this is detrimental. All too often, we take on responsibility for other people's shitty actions. We asked for it. It's a lesson, etc. And while, yes, we can absolutely take lessons from certain situations, we absolutely cannot disregard the pain directly caused by the actions of others. If people try to influence you subtly or overtly, I had someone do this to me recently, to make a decision or to do something that they recommend or that they want you to do your best to find your own clarity before you respond. And if you worry about angering someone by giving them the answer you know that they don't want to hear, getting this clarity for yourself is your priority. If they continue to try to sway you after you have given them clarity, perhaps there is more clarity that you can give them. And sometimes this clarity is simply, no, I don't want to, or I will not, and that is my final answer. Thank you for your concern. And honestly, if they continue to pester you, ask them why convincing you is so important to them. Even after you have given them a definitive answer. Perhaps they haven't even asked this question of themselves. Here you are taking it a step further because they have invaded your field for long enough, and now it's time for them to fucking contain themselves. Because they're spilling over, and it's not fair. How do you get solid in your clarity? Well, you might not always need to be solid in your clarity, to be perfectly honest, if you literally aren't. Right? There's no rule saying you have to be completely clear all the time. Sometimes you're just not. Oy, excuse me. But as your own advocate, as your representative of yourself, as your own manager, as your own president of yourself, of your own self-country, you have every right to say, I don't have clarity on this just yet, so I cannot give you an answer. And that's it. So while I have, for the majority of my life and the majority of episodes on this podcast, been in a state of self-imposed insecurity in behavior, in demeanor, in personality, I appreciate and love those parts of myself. I was letting the storms at sea batter my sails. Instead of pulling them down and steering out of the storm, I felt that the storm was simply a way of life. And I beat myself up for not having stronger sails. And I've simply found that I prefer a nice small kayak. I know when to control my direction and speed. And I know when to pull up my paddles, dangle my feet in the water, and feel the sun on my face. And I don't care what other people's boats look like. I'm only concerned with how it feels to be in mine. And I have faith that if I ever have the desire to trade it in for a yacht, I shall do so. Either way, I'm deciding to give myself the freedom to change my mind or change direction as often as I want or need to. There is simply no more navigating on someone else's route or path. It doesn't exist in my life anymore. So I'll say getting to this level of freedom took a lot of bravery. Bravery to look for myself wherever I was hiding. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say, I don't even know if I'm using that phrase correctly. I don't think I've ever used that phrase. Also, having the bravest fucking friends to walk me through this journey. Giving me honesty, reflecting some truth in a caring way, in a compassionate way. Asking for help. It's my own hell, but it's my own personal definition of vulnerability. And I can understand people not wanting to do this, but I will tell you that asking for help was the key for me to this level of freedom. And it was an extremely simple key hiding in plain sight. So I offer all of this to you in the hopes that it helps you navigate a little bit more clearly on your own path. And I understand how difficult it is to peel yourself away from TikTok. And I think as long as we keep accepting that this is a fact of life that, everyone has to do, especially if you have a business and you need to promote it, I think we're further sticking ourselves in the sand. Because it goes against everything that I personally believe and feel about energy and attention and focus. And I just don't think that we're there yet. I don't think we're at a point where we can safely use these tools that are really beautiful tools in a way that benefits us. Not yet. Not yet. But I do encourage you to find a way to use it in those ways if you can. And honestly, if you disagree with me, because you have every fucking right to disagree with me, I encourage it. For me, I'm going to keep talking about it because I notice how it affects people in my life. Not everybody, but for people who are in vulnerable states. So, if you can, figure out what your motivation is. Try not to zone out on this life. There are going to be times where you do need to zone out, but know yourself well enough to give that as a gift to yourself when it needs to happen and understand the context of it and stop being so easily influenced. I'm sending you so much love, as always. I hope that you are resonating with some of this, and I hope that you're doing okay. Reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm always happy to respond to emails, and I've been getting some, and I really, really enjoy it. So again, you're not going to find me on Instagram or TikTok, not in the near future. But you will find me on YouTube, and LinkedIn as well. So you can go to jenniferway.com, read a little bit more. If you're still not sure about working with me, take your time. There's no rush. You need to be self-directed. That needs to be your own call. Because what we're going to do in the work that we do together is I'm going to teach you how to plug into your own fucking source. Because you are the source. All right, everybody, have a wonderful week, and I will talk to you very soon.